Welcome to Hear From Where, a podcast about the journeys that shape us. I'm your host, Chef Andrew Garrett, and each week I'll sit down with incredible individuals who've carved their own paths in health, nutrition, entrepreneurship, sports, and beyond. This is where we dive deep into the stories of determination, resilience, and passion, the moments that brought them here, from where they started. Whether you're looking for inspiration, a spark to start your own journey, or just love hearing amazing stories, then you're in the right place. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's explore what it really takes to follow your dreams. Good morning. So, welcome to episode 1 of Hear From Now. I'm Chef Andrew Garrett, and today I am joined by my guest, Miss Sarah Allen. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. I'm excited to get this first episode wrapped up, and I'm glad to be doing it with someone that I know personally, outside of just the realm of cool people and nutrition and health. So I kind of want to dive into what your story is. I really want to know where you're coming from and where you plan to go, and see where our conversation takes off from there. So if you could take a second and just introduce yourself, tell us about where you're at and what you're doing and what your plan is, and let's start chatting.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I recently completed my nutrition certificate through Cornell University. Before that, I started with their plant medicine program. I grew up around my grandmother and my aunt having herbal and produce gardens, so gardening and plant medicine has always been a part of my life. So it's no surprise that that's kind of where I went. So I started with the plant medicine program, and naturally they brought up produce, plant, vegetables, fruits, things like that. So that got me thinking, okay, well, those are plants too, not just herbs as we think of them. So then I decided to do the nutrition program and just diving into my own health journey. And I've always been drawn to sharing and helping with other people as well. So I would like to start my breathwork certification this year. And my plan is to somehow incorporate uh, nutritional guidance, functional breath work, and herbal supplementation where needed. And this idea to get back to the root of, healing before we reach like more preventative, right? Like I imagine myself consulting eventually with people who are born healthy and are looking at more preventative health before we get to the point where we're chronically ill and we can't avoid reaching for the medications. We can't, avoid potentially being on these medications for life. So that is my long-term goal, is building a business around maybe one-on-one consultations with people and getting back to the root. What does everybody need to do? Breathe, right? How are we breathing? What are we eating? We all need to eat food. Food is medicine. And then utilizing plant supplementation where needed, if needed. So that's sort of my long-term goal.
That's awesome. I love that. And I really want to get into, so I also grew up gardening and being around plants, and I didn't really look at it when I was younger as, oh, this is going to be a solution for health. This is just how we eat. Like, we have a garden, we raise our pigs, and we go hunting, we go fishing, and this is just what we eat. I thought that was normal because you're just a kid and you're living in the middle of nowhere. So that was my experience. So what is something that really stands out to you in that memory of, gardening early on and seeing herbs used? as kind of a health aspect?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I would often it started to just like it was always around, and so I would go play, and while I was there, I was noticing just the joy of watching something grow and cultivating something and being hands on. And my grandmother, who I grew up with, probably until I was about 6 years old, my aunt lived there as well. They were just very natural when it came to, there was no soda in the house. We ate pretty much homemade breads, things like that. And then if you had like a cold or some type of ailment, my grandmother would always go like whip something up. So I didn't think that was you know not normal until I started getting older and going over to my friend's house, and they had soda and snacks and things like that. And it was, always so exciting and such a treat. But I think I learned, just the enjoyment of cultivating something from start to finish, from, seed to fruit. Um, and yeah, it was kind of a sense of peace. And then learning later in life um, how beneficial that could be is always something that stuck with me. So not just a hobby or something that I like to do because I like the cultivation process, but then really digging into how beneficial that can be for health or even just preventative health and staying healthy.
Right. And now the average person knows herbs as like basil and mint and parsley. Maybe some folks are familiar with cilantro or dill. What were some of the herbs that your grandmother and aunt were growing that were specific to like medicine, or when you had a cough or something like that, that's like, oh, drink this tea? What were some of those? Do you remember?
Yeah, they were always growing like echinacea. So that is a really great overall immune booster. Things like peppermints or the mint family, spearmint is really good for digestion. So if you have gas or bloating, or if
I
I ate
definitely
too
have
many,
those.
yeah, if I went over to my friend's house and ate too many processed foods and came back with a stomach ache, something like as easy as a peppermint tea, in the evening to kind of help aid digestion. Uh, I'm trying to think of others that were around. I mean, I remember the echinacea because it's just a beautiful flower, also. So we did use that a lot. If something, if I felt a cold or a tickle or something coming on, I remember echinacea tea always being around. Um, and I know that I used a lot of that peppermint tea because,
And now, so for everybody listening, like, it's easy to grow. I've got my little herb set up back here behind me, and I've got spearmint growing. So if I wanted to make like a spearmint tea, like if I'm having issues or I'm feeling bloated or gassy, like just taking fresh tea leaves and steeping it in hot water, or is it something like you have to dry them and then use them for a tea? Like what's that process looks like?
yeah, you can dry them or use them as a tea, but you can also use them fresh too. So mints are great, and they're so easy to grow. I'm sure you know. I mean, they take off like wildfire
They're
too.
awful
So
in a garden.
I know. I was going to say, so if you are growing it for medicinal purposes, sometimes it is, or just growing it in general, sometimes it is better to do something like that in a pot just so you can control it spreading into everything else. But yeah, I've made peppermint tea fresh, or if I've got it bulk, you can dry it too. So it's a pretty easy concoction to make, and it
Okay.
grows well. I mean, it's it's hard to mess that up.
Yeah, it's really
It's
hard
a
to
good.
kill. It's really hard to kill mint. I actually have it growing on the outside of my garden beds. I have concrete cinder blocks as my garden beds, and so in those empty spots, I planted a bunch of mint because of I wanted to control it. But then what I learned is that mint actually vines off and it'll find the dirt. So I had to build a trellis to push the mint up, and I've got this chocolate mint plant that is just well, it's not out of control, it's in control now, but it was trying to take over my tomatoes, and I was like, whoa, we'll slow down there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very I mean, I had it in a garden when we were in Oregon, and it was like a wood raised garden with the house on the back end, and it would find the cracks in the cement. I mean, I was like, wow, this this plant will grow and it will find a way.
Yeah, mint
Like
is
it'll snake
prolific.
through, yeah, it'll snake through anything. It's pretty wild.
So, at what point did you realize that this is a path that you wanted to take to share the knowledge that you have from your experience growing up into your education, into pushing it out there to the general public? Like, what was the moment that really like hit that switch for you? Like, what was it that brought it to the surface of your mind where you're like, you know what, I can help people? What was that like?
Yeah, I think ever since I was young, I was sort of, I had this, I don't know, maybe a natural calling. Like I was always the therapist in my friend group, or, people feel comfortable around me. And I always had joy being able to help my friends out. I definitely feel like it's a part of my personality to want to help, to want to share knowledge. I get excited about it. So that's always been there. But, in my young adult life, I got music was always sort of my passion, and I thought that was the direction I was going to go in. And then I got out of school, had to start paying student loans. And so I got into the bartending industry, and that sucked me in for a really long time. It was easy money, it was working for me. Um, but then I found myself surrounded by alcohol all the time, right? So, and then after probably a decade of bartending, I got into wine and the wine industry. I dabbled a little bit in harvest and winemaking. And then eventually I moved into sales. So I was making really great money for the first time in my life. But you're in this industry where it's so normal to, at the end of your day, drink. Or my job was to schmooze, and drinking, that was, tasting. Even if you're spitting, you're still surrounding yourself by that. And though I was making good money, I got to a point where it just wasn't working for me. I didn't want to be around that all the time. Even when I was bartending, I felt, I'm getting people drunk, and I can't be responsible for their actions, but I didn't feel like I was helping. And I think that that was weighing heavy on my mind because it was going against everything at my core, wanting to help people. And I just had to take some time to reflect and reconnect with what I'm passionate about and what I like to do, what brings me joy, and how can I connect that in helping people. So it brought me back to gardening, which was always something I did as a hobby. But, when you're in sales and you are expected to always do better, there's this added pressure, and then you have alcohol in the mix. And I just knew I needed to make a big career change. So I got into the health industry. I started as a receptionist in a naturopathic doctor's office, which I still work at now. And then that led to us moving from Oregon to Arizona, keeping the job and doing it remote. So now I was sort of in my hermit stage, which was very important in my journey. I was taken away from all my friends. I was taken away from, that industry, and I was focusing on my own personal health journey. Um, and I had a lot of extra time. I was working remote. So even though I felt like I was in a better place, I was now working remote, and all the little steps that I would take, even if it was parking downtown and walking to the office, now I'm waking up in the morning, I'm walking down the hallway. I just wasn't moving as much. So though I wasn't drinking as often, now I'm sedentary. And I put on probably 20 to 30 pounds over a year or two. I started developing a relationship with food where I was using snacks in between my calls for like a dopamine hit. That didn't help. So then I just had to, then I had like a new problem, right? Now I'm just not moving my body as much. working remote. So yeah, I had to completely reassess my day to day. I got a standing desk. I got one of those treadmills that I could put under the desk, and I just started moving. And I mean, it's kind of a long story, my journey, and we can get into it a little bit more. Yeah, but to answer your question, I just had to reconnect with myself really, and look at what I was doing, and um, going back to again, like gardening, cultivating, and sharing that versus doing that with alcohol. It just wasn't aligning with me anymore.
Right, you're going from one extreme to the other. I mean, you're going from the I'm going to put my recognize the feeling of I'm not helping people to oh I'm not helping myself, and so it's like being stuck in that middle. What was it like? I mean, I myself have also been through a lot of moves where I like leave my friend group and leave everything and change everything around me. And then I get stuck in this position where I'm alone. Right. And that's
Hmm.
for me as uncomfortable as it is, because I'm a very extroverted person. I like to be out, I like to be in crowds. I like to be around people. I like to be talking and learning. And so it's really weird to feel comfortable being in that hermit stage. What was it like for you to get to recognize that and then move away from it? Like what were the emotions and the feelings around that kind of got you to the next step of action?
Yeah, so I always thought I was more of an extroverted person too. Being in the bar industry, and then sales, it's very social. Having a big group of friends where every weekend it was something, even if it was just the sake of a weekend, everybody's getting together, it's someone's birthday, it's this or that. So I was living a very sociable life, but I was also exhausted all the time. I was burning the candle at both ends. I would work Monday through Friday and then be a weekend warrior. And there was no rest in that. I never felt rested. So I think I was fighting what I had always known, which was being very social and being in this big friend group. So when I made the switch, I actually loved it at first. Wow, to not have plans, to just have time with me and my husband in our own little worlds. Because we never had that. We had roommates or a big friend group. Like I said, there was always something. So at first, it was really nice. However, working remote too, over time, you start to talk to yourself a lot. I miss the camaraderie of having coworkers and looking at them and, being able to say something like, wow, Um, so it was a shift that I think really needed to happen. What I realized is I was constantly distracting myself, whether I knew it or not, with, and I wasn't able to focus on my dreams and how to connect and reconnecting, first of all, with myself, and then being able to understand my gifts and my talents and utilize that in the right way to then help people. So by pulling everything away and being in this hermit stage, I was first able to really look at myself, my life, my health, and start with that. And I feel like I'm still on that journey. I don't think we're ever done with that journey because life keeps happening, and it will until it's over. So I really needed to just shed everything so that I had no choice but to face myself and to face my health. And it has to start with, yourself. If you're going to help other people and you've never taken the time to help yourself, well, you kind of feel like a fraud. And how can you really understand and connect if you haven't been through that yourself? Obviously, everyone's different. Everyone's a snowflake. So, but yeah, I felt like I really, really needed to shed all of that away. And when I did, I realized it's nice to be quiet and boring and normal. I had never, ever given myself that before. So at first, sometimes it felt a little uncomfy, but it was necessary for me for sure. And I just felt like I was really distracting myself, and I would have never gotten to, focus on myself, focus on my health, focus what I needed to do. And that it really is the first step. So connecting to myself to be able to connect to other people was a very important part.
Yeah, and in today's world of social media and the internet, I think that there's so much information out there, and there's so many people that are just telling you what to do and what to eat and how to work out and how to do this and how to do that. But you don't really, in my personal opinion, it's a lot of do as I say, not as I do. And I think that
Hmm.
that's where people like yourself come into this world where you're very much do as I do. And that is such a huge piece of the puzzle because if it, like you said, I mean, if we're not doing the things that we're suggesting people do, then we're just full of shit and we're not actually getting to the root of helping people. It's a huge piece of the puzzle to me. I just started nutrition coaching and I have a few clients and it's like I can't consciously do ask them to do something that I myself am not doing or willing to do because it just doesn't feel good. And then when I hear them have success, I'm like, oh my God, like this feels so good. So it's like, yeah, it's a trip and getting to that root of do as I do is huge, and I love to hear people say that. And I think that that's one of the reasons why you're going to be so good in this career in this industry. Um, what is what is something that's happening in the nutrition world right now? Like I'm gonna kind of change speeds. Is what is a pet peeve that you see out there in the industry that you're like, I want to be a change. I want to affect change in this specific area.
Yeah, I mean, I think fads in general can be detrimental to people's journey because, like I said earlier, everyone is a snowflake. If there was one diet plan that worked for everyone, we would have figured that out by now, right? I mean, we've been around as humans for a very long time. And of course, things change and evolve. We change and evolve. But I think a lot of people see these fads and have a lot of hope that this is the next big thing that's going to work for me. And they forget how individual our bodies are. Um, and so when they try these fads, I guess diets or nutrition plans, and they don't find success, then it's going to kind of knock them off. Maybe they stop trying altogether, or you want something to be sustainable. You want the health journey to be sustainable. But we are all so different. So I think really listening, being heard and seen individually is such a big piece. And finding somebody, whether it's a practitioner, a nutritional coach, a doctor, who's listening to you and not just saying, well, you should do this. And then, yeah, we'll see how it goes and you can adjust. But I think a lot of people see these fads, whether it's an herb, like, oh, ashwagandha is having a moment right now. If you're stressed, you should take ashwagandha. Well, there's a lot of other factors, that could or could not work for you. And I think it's the same with diets. There's so many, dietary restrictions. We're all so different. So I, going into something and understanding that this might not work for you is really important too. And just having that individualized, you know just having that relationship with somebody who understands and is going to go a little bit deeper one on one. Because I think just fads in general, people jump on the bandwagon and then get discouraged, and that might completely knock them off their health journey.
No, I completely agree. Now, I have to admit that I love fads because I like to feel a part of the group, or I like to feel like I'm going after this thing that I see someone that's like, oh yeah, look at the success that they're having. I'm going to jump on this. And so I have personally done pretty much every fad diet for a minimum of 90 days that exists. Have you had that? Have you had any experience where you've jumped into a fad and been like, oh yeah, you know what, this is gonna be the thing, and then get partway through and be like, this is fucking stupid. Like this is not gonna work. Like, have you experienced that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like right now, I am doing an animal based diet. And before I had tried, veganism, vegetarianism, um, and I've been on a long journey. Like, I don't know really what it was that originally made me think that, maybe it's the environment, the way the world is going these days, greenhouse gases, there's a lot of politics involved, I think sometimes too. So I was forcing myself to, try to eat this way to better the planet. And, I thought that eating more fruits and vegetables and plant based proteins would work for me. And I mean, it's just, I did a lot of studying recently, and an interesting topic I actually wanted to see if you are familiar with are blood type diets.
Ooh, yeah, blood type diets. Yes.
Yeah, so we can get into it, but in the short of it, I found out that I have an O type blood type.
Same,
And
same.
okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is it is the oldest blood type that we know of for humans. And lately just been connecting with this idea of ancestral, diets. How did we eat back then? And realizing when I was trying to cut out animal products, I didn't feel optimal. I didn't have the energy. I didn't feel great on it. It's a journey. And, there were a lot of things, testing I did in the past, and like allergy testing. I found out that I have a soy and pea allergy. Well, if you're looking for plant based proteins and you're cutting out soy and pea, you're going to have a really hard time
Yeah.
getting enough protein, because a lot of those plant-based proteins are coming from pea proteins or soy. So I struggled with that, and it didn't work for me. I just wasn't getting enough protein. I wasn't feeling energized. Um, so that's something that I experienced, and now I'm playing around with this animal based diet. I'm incorporating things like organs, and that's, maybe that's not what works for everybody, but I can right now only speak to my journey and, you know the success I'm seeing. So the blood type diet, that's interesting. What do you know about that?
So I'm gonna circle back and
Okay.
like yourself, I've been vegan for 90 days. I've been vegetarian for 90 days. And like you, is I just it did not feel good. Like I wasn't performing great. I wasn't sleeping great. I wasn't like being cognitively aware. I wasn't being present. I was cranky. I was bitter. Um, and right now I am in more of a animal based diet. Like really is what it is. Is I bow hunt, and so I eat a lot of wild game, and I'm trying to incorporate more liver, more tongue, more heart into my diet overall. And I think that one of the things that people get into with these fad diets, right, is like the paleo diet is one of my favorites to just like kind of tear apart, because at its core, I think it's a really good diet, right? Because it's like, oh, you know what, cut these things out, you're going to feel better. And generally, they're high inflammation things like sugar, legumes, and hyper processed dairy, which do cause inflammation in our body, and they can give us things like bloating and gassiness. But then you look at things like the carnivore diet, which is the new like really hardcore like carnivore, and this is how our ancestors ate. And it's like, well, my ancestors aren't the same as your ancestors, and we also aren't nearly as active today as our
Mm,
ancestors were then. I mean, if you look at hunter gatherer tribes, I mean, they were traveling anywhere from 10 to 12 miles hunting an animal. And yeah, the only thing they were eating was that animal because they just traveled 10 to 12 miles to do so. And in that process, they're picking things up, they're carrying, they're jumping, they're squatting, they're pushing. So there was a lot more exertion of energy for our bodies to actually process those things. As I have only really glanced over the blood type diet, and so Uh, what I know about it is that, our 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 genes are designed a specific way to ingest and consume specific things. So our bodies are this brilliant design of technology that is able to identify, oh, you know what? Elk is going to be great for my body. And when I eat elk, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to perform good. I'm going to think good. When I eat grass fed butter versus margarine, my body's going to be like, oh, hell yeah, like this is a natural thing. I want to use this. I'm going to process it really efficiently and use it as energy. And so that's my baseline knowledge of it. So what have you found with the blood type diet that I'm missing, which is pretty much everything?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, that's something that I have been recently looking more into. But a couple years ago, when I was forcing myself to try to eat more vegetarian or even pescatarian, I love seafood. That was the one thing I struggled with giving up, to be honest. Um, so when I started working at this naturopathic doctor's office and thinking, about my diet, myself, my own journey, I just thought I was like a super gassy person. I thought it was a part of my charm and my personality. It's like Sarah's a farter, let's be honest, like that's and then I started thinking, is this normal? Like, should I be uncomfortable every time I eat a big salad and I think that I'm doing this good thing for myself? And then just not feeling well. And I didn't really know anything about nutrition back then. I was just on my own journey, and I went to my doctor, who specializes in nutrition, and she suggested that I start doing a food journal and logging everything so we can really hone in on, what am I eating that might be creating these gases or, this digestional uncomfort. And I was eating a good mix of, vegetables, protein where I could, and I logged it for a while. And then I found out from a friend, who was vegetarian for a while, and we were just kind of talking while I was doing this food journal. And she had mentioned something about being O type and how vegetarianism didn't work for her. She was still craving meat. She'd go 3 days without meat and just like crave it or just not be satiated. She just, and I was having a very similar feeling. And I, at the time, obviously with my doctor, started with blood work. Let's get a baseline. Let's see, like, what are you looking like? What are you deficient in? What are you not getting enough of? And it came to be that I was vitamin D deficient and iron deficient. Like I wasn't getting enough iron. Now, living in Oregon or anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, you can attest that most people are vitamin D deficient, right? You have like 9 months out of the year where it's cloudy. So that's very common and totally made sense to me. And I had struggled before when I was younger, and it might have something to do with the lack of red meat. When I was in high school, I decided that I just wasn't going to eat red meat because I heard, somewhere I picked up that red meat isn't the healthiest thing for you regularly. And I was in high school. So I just decided, like I'm just not going to do that. So I had anemia during that time. And I think I've always struggled a little bit with iron. I did. And I still, well, not now, but we'll get to there. So basically, she put me on a vitamin D supplement, just like an oral, and iron supplements. I was taking this iron extra. And she said, take them every day. And then in a month or two, we'll do blood work panels again and see where you're at. So I took them religiously every day. I think 2 months later, we did another blood panel. And I went in for the results. And she said, well, your vitamin D looks great. The supplement's definitely been helping. But have you been taking the iron supplements? And I said, yeah, I take them every day together for sure, like never miss a day. And she was like, well, your iron stores haven't, increased at all. So there was this interesting piece where, I was taking this oral iron supplement every day and my body wasn't absorbing the iron. It just wasn't absorbing it that way. So she decided to have me incorporate red meat. Like, let's eat it. Let's eat it and see if there's a difference. And I tested after a couple months. She was like, I want you to eat red meat 3 to 4 times a week. And I did. I was eating it, and then I did my blood panel and everything was up and good. So for me, the interesting portion of that was I was taking the supplements, the vitamin D worked. My body knew what to do with that, I guess, but it wasn't absorbing the iron from the supplement. However, when I ate the red meat, it was. So I always thought that was kind of interesting, where, maybe it was in connection to this blood type, and my body knows what to do. Your body knows what to do, how to absorb nutrients through food. So what I learned from that, and then also what I learned through my nutrition course through Cornell, is the best way to get nutrients in your body is to eat food. That is how it sounds crazy, but like when you think about it, that is what our whole digestive system is meant to do, is break down and extract these nutrients. You can't get around that. So yeah, I took iron supplements for a while and my body just it didn't know what to do with that. For whatever reason, it wasn't absorbing it. But then when I switched to actually eating the food, my body had no problem doing what it needs to do with the iron. And so I thought that was very interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Michael Pollan's book In Defense of Food is a really good book. And he talks about the supplement and vitamin industry and how it started in the late 60s, early 70s. And, oh, take your vitamins. And it's because we stopped eating our nutrients, is we stopped actually consuming food, which is the way our bodies are designed. So like I have a very much like love-hate relationship with supplement industry. And especially with the ultra processed, I get called out very often because I'm like, oh, ultra processed food is terrible. And then someone will be like, well, you're taking protein powder, and by definition, that's an ultra processed food. I'm like, gosh dang, like you're right. So like, I don't want to admit it, but it's absolutely true. But if I'm consuming, my 180 to 200 grams of protein a day through elk or beef or chicken or fish, I feel way better than if I'm just like trying to supplement it through, taking my greens juice or my protein powder, or even I went on a deep dive with creatine lately. Because I read an article. It was like, if you're lifting on a regular basis, you should have like 15 to 20 grams of creatine every day. And I'm like, dang, that's a lot. And then I got really constipated and had a lot of problems internally. And I'm like, something's wrong with what I'm doing. So I went on a deep dive, like, okay, how does creatine exist? Well, creatine naturally occurs through protein synthesis from eating meat. So, like things like elk, grass-fed beef have a higher concentration of the amino acids that ultimately allow your body to create creatine. So, like on top of taking this 20 grams of creatine, I was also ingesting another, anywhere from 15 to 20 grams. So I was like 40 grams of creatine. My body's just like, whoa, like didn't know what to do and wasn't processing things correctly. And I think that the supplement industry kind of leaves that gray area open for people in the sense that it leaves the deeper truths kind of hidden and just says, oh yeah, take this and you're going to feel great. It's like magnesium, potassium, iron, all those are really good. For me, I love leafy greens. So I love like mustard and arugula, not so much spinach, but radicchio and endive. Chicories as well are really high in those metal
Minerals.
Nutrients.
Yeah.
And so I've been eating a lot more of those things and I'm feeling way better. But that's interesting that you took the iron supplement, didn't see the results in the blood panel, and then started eating red meat and your body's like, oh, thank God. Thank you.
Yeah. My provider was like, she didn't believe me. She's like, are you not taking the iron? Like what happened with that? And I'm like, no, I'm taking it every day. But my body just, for whatever reason, wasn't absorbing it that way. when I switched to eating meat. And that kind of like, going back to your question about like, the fads, or I think that I 100% agree with you when it comes to the supplement industry. There hasn't been enough, because that is relatively newer than us eating for ever up until this point. There hasn't been a lot of research uh, supporting, taking supplements and basically flushing our organs with these concentrated, vitamins or minerals, what that may be doing to us, right? Like under supplementation or deficiencies are just as dangerous as over supplementation. If you have like a vitamin A deficiency and then you're taking a multivitamin that has like, if you see like 360% of the daily value, and then you're not taking into consideration your diet on top of that, and maybe like how much of this or that, this vitamin or mineral that you're getting, and then you're just taking this multivitamin with like 1000% of this or that. Like that's not good for your organs. Like you can do some real damage if you don't take into consideration, first of all, what's my baseline? Get a blood panel, see what you need and what you can alter in your diet first to get what you need, and then use a supplement for what you're not getting or what you don't have access to, because that's why it's called a supplement. It's supposed to supplement what you're not getting. But I think with fads and things, or people are just busy, our culture, it's easier to just grab a multivitamin or grab a pill. But a lot of people are missing the work that goes in between to seeing what you actually need or what you're actually getting before just reaching for this multivitamin or this pill or this supplement. I think there's a missing link with really understanding what you need and the danger in over supplementation that, some of these vitamins can have long term on your organs. It's just as bad as being deficient.
Right. Yeah, I try to recommend to all my clients to get blood work done. I think that that's, the number one way to really track how you're doing is like, what's my blood work say? Like, what's this really, what am I really doing in my body and what do I really need? And I think it's important for people to hear that because we do get so easily wrapped up in, oh, I'll just take that. And it's just an afterthought. Like you said, I mean, 300 grams of this and 300% of that and 5,000% of this. Like it is like it's completely overwhelming to your body because our bodies are processed to process 100% of something.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't designed to process 200%. That's not the way it works. And so, yeah, blood work I think is like just a key component to anybody that's really going to start taking their nutrition seriously is like get your blood panels done and then do it regularly.
Yeah, like what is your baseline? What do you need? And that's what I was saying by like, the dangers of fads. People, something comes out and people are like, "Oh," but they're not, it's supplementing. If something has like, 1000% of your daily value, that's made for somebody who is severely, deficient in this. So they maybe need to start flushing themselves with this highly concentrated, vitamin or mineral. But that's not great for just everybody. So do your research for sure and get your baseline first. See where you're at. That's, very important. And then if you are adding in a new supplement or you're changing your diet or your lifestyle, yeah, get tested again and see how that's working for you, you know? See,
Yeah.
like, because I think a lot of people, maybe they start with the blood work and they realize, okay, I need to adjust this or that, whether it's diet or lifestyle change or becoming more active or getting more sunlight or, de-stressing or whatever it may be. And then they start doing that, but they forget to check in with their body and see, are these changes helping or hurting me? They're probably helping you, but it's a good reminder to, don't be afraid to check in with your body, whether that's, blood work or going to your doctor and making sure that you let them know all the supplements that you're taking. Also because medication too, if you're on medication, that's a whole nother thing, is how, I guess maybe that's a little bit more for herbs, but just the importance, I think, of checking in and getting that blood work done, even if it's just annually. Insurance is going to cover that most of the time, just see what's working and see what's not. I think a lot of people do the initial blood work and then they make changes, and you'll know if you're feeling better, you know. But I think it's important to know where you're at, you know.
Yeah, you hit on another nail on the head too with the food journaling. Is it's something that I work with clients currently with is tracking food. It's the first thing we do for a week, and there are so many upsides to tracking food, but there's also like this really dark downside that it's easy for me to get stuck in this, oh man, I beat myself up, right? Like all of a sudden I'm tracking everything I do and like, oh man, I didn't have 5 chocolate covered almonds, I had 35. And it's like, oh man, you get into this like beat yourself up stage. So I don't necessarily like the tracking aspect, but what I've been trying to have people do is like just track for a week, and then from there start recognizing how you feel after you eat. And part of that is also journaling, and what I found is through journaling my food, like, and journaling to me looks like tracking, but for other people it might just be writing it down or really paying attention to what it is. But man, like it makes such a difference in how I think about food. And I
Mm,
think for me, like I grew up really poor, and so like what we had is what we had. There wasn't going out to dinner, there wasn't DoorDash, there wasn't, you know, uh, pizza delivery, there wasn't McDonald's, there wasn't Jack in the Box. It was just, here you go. This is what we have. And so when those other things became available to me, it was like, oh my god, like it's a treat. And I started treating myself, and so my brain associated this emotion of like happiness and like good fortune
yeah.
to these really empty, nutritionally empty foods. And so journaling now, it just helps create a better connection emotionally and mentally around food for me. Hey,
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that recently has been like speaking to me is intuitive eating,
mm,
you know, and that's very much the same thing you're saying is just reconnect with yourself, right? Like your mind and your body, your mind and your thoughts and your consciousness and your body, it almost feels like two separate languages. You know, I love the idea that it was not an idea, it's your body speaks to you in symptoms. That's your body's language. So if you're ignoring something and you're going about your day and you realize, you know, whatever it may be, like for me, for example, I've been dealing with circulatory issues. I think it just kind of runs in my family, but going remote, for example, and not moving my body as much, I started getting like tingly numbness in my fingers or my toes because I wasn't moving my body. I was sitting all day or even just standing all day. It's repetitive things. And then, you know, I would look down at my like pinky and ring finger when I was cold and it would be purple or blue. And I ignored it. I ignored it. I was like, oh, that's definitely weird, but maybe it'll go away, you know? And it's like my body was trying to speak to me in symptoms, and you can ignore it and then your symptoms will get worse and worse and your body is screaming to you. So it's important to connect the mind and the body in that way, and it's going to speak to you symptomatically. So, you know, noticing what's going on, whether it is from your diet or from your food or from your lifestyle, I think the body definitely speaks to you. And so like intuitive eating too, I mean, if you think about, you can Google, you know, what cravings mean, like food charts, and that's very interesting to me. Um, you know, am I craving salty? Am I craving something sugary? Do I want something comforting or oily? Or am I craving breads and pastas? And really start to break down what your body may actually be needing versus what you reach for. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like the minerals or vitamins that you might be deficient in connected to these cravings like salty or sweet or carby breads and pastas, and understanding what that means, and then, you know, how to maybe better reach for that.
No, I like that a lot. And you, again, like one of the things that I'm really bad with is Dr. Google. And I love to Google things. And I think that the average person out there just goes to Google immediately and is like, oh, I'm having this symptom. What does that mean? And
Right.
they look at the top result. But something that I've learned recently is, okay, let's get to like page 2, page 3 of like what these search results are, and really looking at what the website is prior to going ahead and just clicking on something.
Hmm.
And I've learned to avoid things like Men's Health or like Self Magazine articles and going straight to like, the Cleveland Clinic or the Mayo Clinic. What are some of the tricks that you found with researching, different things? Like, how can someone be more efficient in the information that they're actually consuming when they do that Google search?
Yeah, and that is important. So I like to use peer reviewed sites. Like Google has Scholar. You can click Google Scholar, and basically that's going to bring up peer reviewed research. And, that's going to be pulling from actual scientific research and not just so and so using clickbait for their blog or whatever, right? So I think, gosh, what's another one? I'm drawing a blank right now. But yeah, just learning to pull from peer-reviewed sites. Um, and let me think here. Why am I spacing on this? So Google Scholar, PubMed, that's what I'm thinking of. PubMed
Oh, okay.
is a really great search engine, and it's going to pull up peer reviewed, meaning sciences, like actual studies, versus Google or whatever search engine you might be using, because there's a lot of crap out there and anybody can post whatever. Even Wikipedia. I mean, isn't Wikipedia just anyone can go in and edit it, and like is what is even real?
It is, and I haven't come across Wikipedia pages that I'm like, wait a minute, but I've seen internet memes where people are making good point of that. Um,
Yeah.
wh- what are 3 actions that you've taken to improve how you've begun your movement, your nutrition, and your eating? What are 3 actions that really drive you? Because I think that for people, it's that like first small step. It's like that first action leads to the next action, leads to the next action.
Yeah. So for me, in my experience working remote, or somebody, it doesn't even have to be remote, somebody who has a desk job, it's how can I get movement? How can I get movement in my day? Because, like I said, the circulatory issues and knowing that I may be prone to that. Things like getting a stand up desk. So I'm not just sitting and my leg arteries are just, sitting in my chair with all of my weight restricting my blood flow to my legs, which I'm sure is a lot of what I was experiencing with the tingling, or, looking at my hands and feet and seeing that my toes are purple. That's not normal. So, getting a stand up desk, or if you don't have the money for a stand up desk, giving yourself breaks. If it has to be jumping jacks, getting, I got one of those like feet up yoga sort of stool things so I could invert myself, or even doing feet up on the wall where you're laying flat on your back. Do it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day and have your feet up the wall. That's a really great way to, help with circulatory issues or blood flow if you are somebody who's sitting or even standing, just giving yourself an inversion that you can do. So yeah, for me, it was looking at my office and how can we incorporate a little bit of movement. If it's taking my dog on a walk, on my lunch break instead of sitting and watching trash TV. It's better for the dog. It's better for me. Taking breaks, getting sunlight, because yeah, I have a window, but I mean, it's not the same. I'm still inside. I'm still staring at screens all day long. Like our bodies weren't meant to do that. That's a new thing. So how can we adjust and evolve, in a productive way where we're not harming ourselves. So for me, movement and sunlight, and taking into consideration what I'm eating. Going back to what you were saying about eating 35 chocolate almonds or a serving size, I started to give myself breaks throughout my busy working day. I'll make 5 calls and then oops, my fridge is only a few steps away. So my relationship with food for a while became more of an emotional one. And I was using, those little snacks or those breaks to break up my day. But that wasn't really benefiting me because now I'm just addicted to that dopamine hit that I can just, walk to my fridge and I'm not moving now, but I'm eating more, So yeah, I mean, I would say any type of break that you can do, making sure that we're getting sunlight, sunlight's free, however you can incorporate a little bit of that, or a little bit of movement is something easy. We can find ways to do that for sure. Another one that, going back to my 3 core things being functional breath work, food is medicine, and then of course herbs, is breathing. How are we breathing? Just observing how we're breathing. I'm somebody who it takes me a while to fall asleep. And I had a hard time getting in the habit of meditating maybe, or just, giving myself some time to sit and breathe or try to not think about something. And I utilize that. I took the negative, trait of not being somebody who can fall asleep quickly and noticing that, hey, this is time in every day that I can lay here, and instead of letting my mind go and overthink, why don't I use this time to focus on my breathing? And focusing on my breathing, just taking deep belly breaths, filling up my lungs, sort of took my mind off of the, whatever I'm thinking of, and replace that with, because when you're taking those deep breaths, it's kind of hard to think on top of that. Just listening to your breath sort of is a task in its own. So I found that quieted my mind. So incorporating that for my breathwork session, I'm lying there anyways. Instead of battling my mind, why don't you just take a few breaths? And not always, but sometimes it would just lull me right into sleep. It would help relax me. Um, so these are just kind of some easy things that I think everybody, you know, can do.
Oh, I love it. I using time that's already going to be time that is wasted, like finding uh, useful tools for time that would be otherwise be wasted in our heads. Like I think that's a great one. Sarah, I can't thank you enough for taking the time today to talk with me and share your passion and some of your experience, your knowledge. Um, where can folks find more about you? Is there something that's going to help with promoting you and your business moving forward that we can add in here?
Yeah, so at the moment, as a part of my hermit stage, I have taken a little bit of a break from social media. I have a personal Instagram account. It's Universum Flora. Um, I, am hoping to get a website up. My husband and I are looking to move back east. My goal is to take some time and start an organic farm, which, depending on the land we buy, could take some time to rid everything and start fresh. So, eventually I do want to get a website up. Down the line, I would like to do one-on-one consultations with people. But as of right now, I don't have a direct connection. But I will keep you in the loop for sure. And I do want to get that stuff up and running within the next year for sure. I'm hoping to be able to cultivate herbal medicines, hit local farmers markets, get involved in the community where I do land. And I will definitely let you know.
Oh, well, I'm very excited for it. You're going to be one of the people that actually helps people, and uh, your mantra around what you do and why you do it is so awesome. So again, thank you very much for joining me today. I really look forward to getting this out into the world, and it's going to be an exciting journey for you guys. I'm excited to see where you land and what you do. And any excuse for me to have people to go see back east is always a good thing. So
Oh
I look
yeah,
forward to it. Well, y'all enjoy the weekend. Thank you very much.
of course. Thank you.
Go Commanders. I know that's,
Yes.
it's going to be a very stressful day at the house, but
It is a lot of
power
a lot
power
of
through.
feelings. Yeah, happy to be here nonetheless. So, yeah, stay curious.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.